This video is a quick and efficient guide to help you prepare for your first visit to Smith Rock State Park. We'll cover a general overview of the park, different hikes and viewpoints that you might want to check out, parking and facilities, as well as what to expect when you visit during different times of the year. We'll also include some tips for how to avoid crowds, what types of fees or permits you need. Finally, we'll cover some restaurants nearby and different accommodation and camping options. We won't cover rock climbing, that's a totally different topic. Abby and I have been going to Smith Rock for years. We've probably been there close to 100 times between the two of us. So we've gathered a ton of knowledge into this video from our own visits and experience to help you plan and make the most of your time when you visit Smith Rock State Park. If you're new here, welcome to Rooted in Roaming. Our goal is to help you level up your adventures in the Pacific Northwest. If you find this video helpful, you can help us bring you more Pacific Northwest content by liking and subscribing. Throughout this video, I will mention an article and a map that we made, and it should be a good resource to help you plan your visit. So I'll link that article down in the description. It has a lot of the same information that I'll be talking about in this video, but it's nice to have it kind of written down, and there's also that map, which I think will be a super helpful resource. So I'll start with an overview of Smith Rock State Park, just so you can get your bearings and kind of learn a bit more about the park before you go. Smith Rock is one of Travel Oregon's 7 wonders of Oregon, and according to Oregon Live, over 770,000 people visited Smith Rock State Park in 2017, making it the 5th most visited state park in Oregon. Its popularity is definitely well-deserved. It's super beautiful. There's a ton of incredible rock formations packed within a relatively small footprint of 650 acres. Some of these cliffs are up to 600 feet tall above the surrounding terrain. There's a ton of diverse views within the park. You get views of the rock formations themselves and the Crooked River that runs through the park, but you also get views of the surrounding landscape, particularly the Cascade Mountains to the west, which can be extra stunning during sunset or sunrise. There are thousands of rock climbing routes, dozens of hiking trails, and tons of unique views kind of scattered around the park. There's some really great accessible views that only require a short walk from the parking lot, which is a really nice plus for folks that aren't able to do some of the longer and more strenuous hikes. You will need to pay a day use fee when you visit Smith Rock, or you can have an annual state parks pass. Smith Rock is open year-round, but keep in mind the high desert climate can be harsh depending on what time of year. We consider Smith Rock to be a must-visit destination in Central Oregon, so you gotta check it out at least once in your life when you're in the area. So now I want to jump into hiking at Smith Rock State Park and cover a little more in detail about the hikes and some of the viewpoints that you can check out. There's over 12 miles of hiking trails within Smith Rock State Park, and there's a ton of different loop options that you can do, or just out and back trails. It's really ideal for day hiking because of the variety of trail options that they have, and you can get to a lot of the places in the park within an hour or two. There's a ton of different views. As I've said before, you can look to the west and see the Cascade Mountain Range, which has some of those iconic Central Oregon peaks that just look absolutely beautiful on a clear day. But you also get a lot of unique views of the park itself, some of those super steep and impressive rock formations. And then the Crooked River that runs through the center of the park looks so stunning with the rock formations in the background. If you want to, you can just show up and take a look at the trail map and choose one of the hikes when you get there. If you like to do a bit more planning, we're going to cover a few of what we think are the best hiking options when you get to Smith Rock. So I'm going to hop into the map here that we made and just kind of show you visually so you can sort of get your bearings. This map is available on that article that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, and I will link to this in the description. By far the most popular hike in the entire park is the Misery Ridge Trail. This is about 3.6 miles with about 900 feet of elevation gain. So it's actually pretty steep. It can be pretty intense, especially on a hot day, but the views are totally worth the effort because when you get to the top of Misery Ridge, it's so beautiful. You can see views of the entire park, and then like I said, out looking into other parts of Central Oregon. including the Cascade Mountains. This is a great hike if you have kind of a half day to designate to Smith Rock. You get to see a lot of what the park offers, and it's a really iconic Central Oregon trail that you should definitely have on your list. We recommend taking some time to hang out at the top and even exploring around at the top a little bit. You can get a lot of cool views if you kind of go off of the main trail. That said, try to only go on established trails to kind of protect the natural habitat of the area. For a bit more of a challenging hike, we really like the Burma Road Loop, which actually circumnavigates the entire park. It's just over 7 miles and about 1,200 feet of elevation gain, and this is a great option if you have a full day to designate to Smith Rock State Park. You get to see a ton of unique views and get to experience pretty much everything that the park has to offer. If those sound a bit intense for you, there are tons of shorter hikes available, and really you can walk just a few steps from the parking lot and get some incredible views. Some of the options for shorter hikes that we like are the Rim Rock Trail. That's from the southern parking lot. You kind of walk to this nice viewpoint. Of course, the main viewpoint from the Welcome Center is really nice. We definitely recommend checking that out. You can get your photo with that kind of iconic Smith Rock view in the background. Another one to check out is the North Viewpoint. There's a parking lot. You really don't have to walk too far. Another kind of unique view of the park. So all three of these are good options for people who are short on time or aren't able to do one of the longer hikes. Let's move on to parking and facilities. It's good to have an idea of kind of where to park, especially because Smith Rock can get pretty crowded. So it's nice to have at least some mental picture of the different parking options. Really, there's the southwest parking lot, and then there's parking all along the road, kind of in between the south parking lot and the north parking area. So if you can get one of these spots, it's really nice. And then you'll see on the north side of the park, there's kind of a gravel parking lot that they actually recently added to expand the parking. And then, like I said, you can park all along this road section. There are a few restrooms located within the park. The main restroom is right here by the Welcome Center. There's also a restroom kind of down along this trail leading into the park. And then the last restroom is over here on this trail here by the river. You will have to pay a day use fee if you don't have an Oregon State Parks Pass. That day use fee is $5, and you pay at one of the kiosks in the park. There's actually two kiosks. One is over here by the south parking lot, and then one is up here by the Welcome Center. If you can, we recommend an annual Oregon State Parks Pass. I think that's $30, and then you can also get a 2-year pass for $50. Now I want to talk a bit about what to expect when you visit during different times of the year. So like I mentioned earlier, Central Oregon has a harsh, high desert climate. Even within a single day, you can see 40-degree or more fluctuations in temperature. So it's important if you're expecting to be there super early or stay maybe for sunset to have layers in your backpack. There's probably going to be some sun regardless of what time of the year you visit, so it's important to have some sun protection. In the spring, you can expect daytime temperatures between 50 and mid 70s. However, it could be more or less depending on the year that you go and of course the time of day. Nighttime temperatures in the spring and the fall can be in the 30s and the 40s. So again, pack those layers. Spring and fall tend to have some of the best sunsets because you usually get a little bit of clouds and the sun doesn't set super early or late. Spring and the fall are probably our favorite time for getting some really nice sunsets. Summer typically has daytime temperatures in the 70s all the way up to 90 degrees and even more. There's been a lot of 100-degree plus days in the summer. So if you do visit in the summer, you should definitely go early in the morning or wait until the sun has dipped a little bit and the temperatures are sort of cooling off. Even in the summer, nighttime temperatures can be down in the 40s and the 50s. Winter can be variable actually. The temperatures are usually quite cold in the winter. You might get 40 degrees, but you can also get temperatures in the 20s or even lower if it's particularly cold. There's usually no snow on the ground during the winter, but Smith Rock and that general area does get about 30 inches of snow annually, and that snow typically comes in a few larger storms, but also a lot of kind of smaller dustings. But again, it usually melts off, so you probably won't see snow on the ground. But if you do manage to catch Smith Rock after a decent snowstorm, it looks super pretty when there is some snow all over those rocks. So it could be actually a really pretty time to visit. In general, Central Oregon, the winter can actually be a really nice time to do some of these hikes in the relatively lower elevation areas where there usually isn't snow. Especially on sunny winter days, you can get some really warm microclimates because the rock kind of heats up and takes in all the heat from the sun. And it can actually be fairly pleasant in a lot of areas, at least where there is sun, on those colder winter days. Now I want to jump into some tips to kind of make the most of your time when you visit. You might want to consider the level of crowds to expect during different times of the year. There's generally more people visiting Smith Rock between late spring and early fall. So if you do visit during this time, expect there to be a good amount of crowds on the weekends. And if you visit on a summer weekend, definitely go before 9:30 in order to give yourself the best chance to get a spot, or wait until probably after 3 p.m. or even later. The parking lots do fill up, and it can be a real pain to drive around looking for a spot. We've been there on some really crowded days when there are no spots open and you're one of 20 or more cars just kind of driving around looking for people leaving, which just isn't a fun way to spend your time at Smith Rock. So there's a little ice cream shop right outside of the park. You'll see it when you drive in. It just has a few different flavors, and there's a little gift shop as well. This can be a really nice extra treat when you get done hiking on a hot day. If you want to get a really nice photo, definitely check out the main viewpoint by the Welcome Center. Like I said before, you can kind of set up your camera and stand out there with the iconic Smith Rock view in the background. Also a good photo spot is the entrance sign. You can park at the southern parking lot or nearby the entrance sign. If you want to see some of the rock climbers, you should go down to this main wall area here. This is where a ton of rock climbing routes are, and on any given day that is a reasonable temperature, you'll definitely see people climbing the rocks, which can be pretty fun. Finally, I want to cover some of the nearby restaurants, accommodation, and camping options nearby Smith Rock State Park. So Redmond, Oregon is the biggest city near Smith Rock. It's actually really a town of about 36,000 people. There's a ton of restaurants there. There's a good amount of diversity in terms of the restaurants. It's nothing like Bend, Oregon, which has way more. So depending on what you're looking for, either Redmond or Bend will definitely have it. As far as accommodation, Redmond is going to be your best bet, or you can look for Airbnbs that are nearby Smith Rock. I know there's some really cool spots that are actually really close to Smith Rock. If you're camping, definitely check out the bivouac area, which is actually in Smith Rock State Park. I'll leave a link so you can go check that out for yourself. It's worth reading up on. It's not really a normal campground. I think it's actually a walk-in tent only campground. I've never stayed there myself, so I'm going to point you to that resource so you can learn about it. Another option for camping is the Skull Hollow campground, which is about 12 minutes east of Smith Rock. Skull Hollow is a nice kind of more traditional campground. There's also some dispersed camping, so you can go check that out. So I hope this video helped give you kind of a quick overview of Smith Rock State Park, and now you feel a bit more prepared to visit. If this did help, please give us a like and subscribe. We have a lot more videos about the Pacific Northwest. We also have a ton of articles on our website about Central Oregon and beyond. Let us know if you have any more questions in the comments. I hope you have a great time exploring Smith Rock, and I'd love to hear how it went.